Here's the thing about working through trauma. A lot of people rush you through the healing process and the grieving process because they don't know how to process grief themselves. So they tell you to get over it. They tell you to make the best of it. They tell you that they went through it and that you're going to have to make it through the same thing. Or they give you a whole bunch of reasons why how you feel is going to be detrimental to your health or detrimental to your job or detrimental to your life, because they absolutely have no clue what it's like to process grief. Because a lot of the times in our culture, grieving is frowned upon, right? Like you're given your day, maybe sometimes depending on how bad it was, you're given like a week. But after that, people expect you to, get back on the horse, or maybe you just need to go to work, or maybe you need to go to church and pray on it, or maybe you need to go to therapy, instead of understanding that everybody grieves in their own time and everybody has different stages of grief that they go through that may be longer than others. And I see a lot of us really falling victim to this whole mentality that if you don't get over a heartbreak, in fucking 3 days, then something's wrong with you. If you don't get over the death of a loved one, within a month, something's wrong with you. If you don't get over losing a job that you really cared about, within a day or two, and have another job, there's something wrong with you. If you don't get over losing a friendship that may be 20 years or so, that somehow, within a week, that somehow it's something wrong with you. And grief is a normal emotion. It's a normal way for your mind and your body to connect and understand how it's supposed to process. And I say that coming from a person who grief was like not even something I really thought about, or grieving was something I thought about until after my uncle passed away, because my thought was, I don't have time to process everything that's happening. So let me just keep moving on. And I don't have time to process this funeral. I don't have time to process his death. I don't have time to process the loss. I don't have time to process what my mom is going through. I don't have time to process what my kids are going through. I don't have time, because the world kept moving. Bills kept needing to be paid. People were asking us questions that we didn't really have the answers to, because we weren't even emotionally available to answer those questions, but we still had to do it. And then like a year after he passed away, I just like, your brain kind of catches up to where you were a year prior, and it lets you know that you have some shit that you need to work out, right? Because I think one of the things that really kind of triggered my grieving process was that it's really hard to watch your parent be lost. And when my uncle passed away, my mom and my uncle were best friends, still are in death. That is her best friend, ride or die. Okay. And watching my mom process my uncle's death the same way I was, we both were trying to be very stoic and kind of make sure that everything was like done. All the T's were crossed, all the I's were dotted. We moved all of the belongings in with us. We were trying to still live our lives, trying to be these like these formidable grown-ups. And we had no clue what it was like to process full grief, stop, process the loss of somebody that we love, stop, and then process the loss of the life that we thought we were going to all have together. And I think that we rushed a lot of what we were going through because we just didn't even have the space, the patience, or the grace with ourselves to really process what grieving does to you and what not grieving does to you. Because not grieving causes you to have emotional outbursts at the wrong time for the wrong reason. And then what it does is that it starts to morph how you see the the different aspects of your life, right? Because if somebody who means so much to you passes away and you don't have time to grieve that, you start thinking that you don't have time to grieve anything, right? Because if someone so important is gone and you didn't really take the your full chance to really grieve that loss and to really understand how important it was to you, and to also understand that you may never get over that loss, right? But to learn how to replace some of the sad memories or the mournful memories with the beauty and the beautiful memories that you have left of them. And I thought to myself, okay, so let me learn how to properly grieve. But let me learn how to properly grieve everything, not just somebody passing away, but maybe a decision, or maybe you wanted to change jobs and that didn't happen. Maybe you lost a friend. Maybe you were looking forward to going somewhere and you didn't get to do that. And I don't mean grieving in the sense of like taking, everything. Every time you grieve, it has to feel the same way. It has to have the same emotions. It has to encompass this all gut-wrenching moment. But really just taking a moment to take a deep breath and realize that grieving is steps, right? Because when you wanted to really do something, you're like, yo, I should have been able to do that. And then it's like, I just don't understand why I couldn't do that. And then it's like, maybe if I do something different, I can do that. And then it's like, fuck, that really didn't happen. And then, okay, so it didn't happen. What can I do next time to make it feel like it's something that I might be able to accomplish, but in a whole different way. And when we're talking about grieving, it's like all of these steps, but it's these little steps, right? And when we're talking about the stages of grieving, we're talking about denial, because you don't want to accept that something didn't work out, that someone is gone, that a friendship or a situation didn't work out the way you want. And then it's you being angry, right? Because like, fuck this. Why I gotta feel like this? Why did this shit happen? Why couldn't something have been different, right? And then it's bargaining. Well, maybe if we would have, maybe I could have changed. And then it's like sitting in your sadness. And I think that a lot of the times that's what we miss out when we're grieving. We don't get to really sit in our sadness, because you will be humbled by a person who can't process your sadness because they've never been able to sit in theirs. Or you will be humbled by a person who feels like your sadness is triggering some trauma within them. It's going to happen. It's going to fucking happen. And then, because that's the depression kind of sitting in it, right? And then acceptance. They're like, this is what happened. And this lesson or this situation will either strengthen me or it's going to consistently weaken me. And the great thing about grieving is that if you learn to do it as properly as you can, because some of those stages will rip your fucking heart out depending on what the issue is, you will learn how to automatically process your emotions. You'll process your losses so much quicker. And when you can process your losses quicker, you will absolutely be able to move on a little bit faster, depending on the situation. But because we live in a culture where any kind of grieving is met with like blank stares, it's met with, oh, you're being dramatic, it's met with, you just need to learn how to get over it, it's met with, it could have been worse, it's met with, well, at least now you don't have to worry about this, or at least you don't have to suffer about this, or it wasn't meant for you. It makes you, it shrinks your ability to emote the emotions that you fully are. You absolutely should be able to live in. You should be able to, like, kind of sink into those emotions, because it helps you not only mature how you emote your emotions, but it helps you to interact with people with more compassion, more sympathy, more empathy. It gives you more of a sense of trust within yourself, and it allows you to feel free, because when you consistently think about the thing that you're grieving and you never get to talk about it, you never get to show emotion about it, you just constantly replay it in your head, you build up that story into something that it never was, depending on what really happened. I mean, there are times where your fucking story is your fucking story and it was lifing all day, every day. But then there are times where, because you didn't have that chance to really take deep breaths and to sit in your emotions and to be in that pocket where when you got to, like, bathe in your sadness, absorb the emotions that you really needed to absorb from that sadness, learn the lessons that you need to learn from that, and then stand up out of that shallow pool, say a prayer, say an affirmation, say a mantra, light your sage, and then walk off, right? Because the acceptance doesn't mean that you're okay with what happens. It means that you know that this period of grieving has lessened and that you're prepared for a new door to open. And we don't get to do that a lot. We don't get to do that a lot. We have to, when we're talking about mental health, a lot of mental health is processing the different scenarios that happen in our lives. And when we don't get to process those emotions in real time, it creates anxiety, because now we are dictating scenarios and predicting scenarios that haven't happened, that we're sure are going to be detrimental to our health, to our finances, to our physical self, to our souls. So when we're talking about life, mental health, and grieving, I really want us to learn how to grieve, even the small things. The way I say celebrate your small wins, grieve your small losses, because then when those things happen, you'll be able to process them, put them in the correct category, say your prayers, and then move on to the next thing, so that you have this open energy, this open space to be able to process and deal with life as it comes at us, because it's not going to slow down. It doesn't slow down because you have a loss. Shit, it feels like it moves faster, but it gives you just this, it gives you this trust that you have in yourself to be able to process your emotion, to be able to process your emotions, and to have this sense of peace that you walk and talk and understand who you are and how you comprehend. And that's what I've learned from working through the grieving process, because baby, I tell you, when I didn't know how to grieve, I hurt other people. I really did. And you can't unhurt people. You can't. They can forgive you, but you can't unhurt people. You just can't. And you can't expect the same relationship after you've hurt people, because you don't know how to process and do the work yourself. That's why it's called inner works, right? That's why you make I statements. That's why you learn how to accept when relationships end, even if it didn't end in the way that you thought it should end. Because sometimes we hurt people in these small increments, and then we all of a sudden be like, and this person just decided not to be my friend anymore, or this person decided not to be in my life anymore, or this relationship ended. But it was those small little things that we did to hurt someone that we maybe subconsciously didn't even know, because we weren't working on ourselves to know how to deal with our own emotions, that caused us to lose those relationships. And sometimes you never get them back. And if you do get them back, it's not the same. It's just not the same. So let's work on grieving, learning how to process grief, learning how to trust ourselves when we are in our sadness and when we are in our melancholy, and understanding that on the flip side of that can be joy and understanding and grace and patience, because we all deserve it. We so deserve it. So just something to think about, right? Like, this is what healing is about. It's learning how to process all of these sometimes difficult and exciting emotions, and helping us trust ourselves so that we learn how to be open and trusting with others. At least that's what I'm doing. So talk to you soon. Bye-bye.